All right, and we are back, and so is reggae, and so is 2022. so Gashuri, what's going on? We have suddenly we have political rallies. I will not talk about social or physical distancing, but is it not interesting that 2 years before 2022 we are back, and then reggae? Someone said the volume. Yeah. What has triggered all these things? What's really going on?
You see, reggae was playing all along. It was what you know, wanasamanga ilikuwa chini ya maji. It was playing in the background. It was. If you are a keen listener, you could hear some reggae playing in the background. Since the handshake, the clamor for amendments, the clamor for changing the constitution have always been there, right from 2018. And you could hear, you know, a bit of it time and again. And I still remember the very first instance was when President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga went to Kisumu. You remember that event?
Yes.
Where I think it was the launch of the Universal Healthcare Pilot Program. And I remember that day the president saying that this winner takes it all thing is not good for our country. And therein was the first indicator that some sort of amendments to the constitution was in the offing. And so basically what has happened, and I think there's a very close relationship between what was happening in the Senate and what we are likely to see. I highly suspect, and this is my total suspicion, that as soon as next week, the BBI report could be out. If not next week, the week after. And it was not going to be possible to bring the report while there's a standoff in the Senate over the revenue sharing question. So first of all, resolve this, even if with a promise that probably may not be kept, if it won't, but bring the report so that people can have an engagement once we have dealt with the revenue sharing formula issue. So once the report is out, then the discussion around what to do with the report will kick in. Remember, amending the constitution, if we get there through a referendum, is a purely political process, and it has to involve the county assemblies, it has to involve the collection of signatures, it has to involve a discussion in the National Assembly, a discussion in the Senate, and ultimately a discussion at the ballot by the registered voters. So basically, the horses have bolted. If you like, the political masks have been removed. So the discussion is on, and it is not going to be possible now, henceforth, to draw back the horses to the stable. They're out now. So, and this competition, this race, will run from now continuously until 2022.
You said the political masks have been removed.
Yes.
Literal masks, physically zimetolewa. As you're seeing from
and I know you'll be talking about that. But Linus, I wanted to get some historical parallels here. I mean, it looks to me like this is quite strange, because we saw, for example, the deputy president appears quite literally to have launched his presidential bid. I mean, he's going all out, making no pretenses anymore about, you know, the state of affairs within Jubilee and his own intentions for 2022. And we have seen Raila Odinga there in Mombasa, very huge rally there. So it is 2 years to the election. Typically in this country, I mean, we usually don't have breaks that much between elections, but the field kind of doesn't shape up until very close to the election. Yet this one looks like we're beginning to see some formations.
Well, it will still be the case. Historically, the field has not shaped earlier than about 6 months to the election at the closest, and that will still be the case this time. Only that there is a lot of activity from different players and for different reasons. Some of them may pretend to be on the same side, but everybody here is doing their own thing.
Yeah.
What Raila Odinga is doing and what Uhuru Kenyatta is doing are completely not related, as much as they all claim to be supporting BBI. And they are supporting BBI for different reasons. It's not for the paper that they showed us at Harambee House. No, it's not.
Harambee House and Bomas.
Oh, and Bomas.
Yes.
But more importantly, Harambee House as well.
The 9-point, so-called 9
The 9-point, yes. We're departing from that document each day, by the way, because what it's coming down to is the 2022 election, period. It's just about who should be the next president and what is the next arrangement. And that's what's going on here. For Raila Odinga, he's looking at his future. Is this the time that he should become president? For Uhuru Kenyatta as well, he's looking at his life post-office. Is he going to retirement just to rest in Gatundu as advised by John Angeno and Sudi, or is he going to remain active in national politics? Then there is William Ruto, who is also actively on the campaign trail for different reasons, for two reasons. One, the main one that is well known, William Ruto has run the longest running presidential campaign, I think, in recent history. No candidate has yearned for office, perhaps only compared to Raila Odinga, only that Raila Odinga has been doing it from the
between
opposition.
elections, yeah.
And through elections. Two things, he is doing that for 2022, but two, he is also expressing himself and addressing himself to the situation in Jubilee. You reject him in government, you sideline him in government. What does he do with his energy? He has converted Karen into a very, very active campaign station. And then the masks, Jamila, came off, and he has gone to the public now. What is his message? It's right there. It's hustlers versus dynasties. Look at the Kisii rally, where he literally stopped on the street. What was the message? He was telling them, they don't want you to be president.
Ati wanasema hustlers.
Wanasema hustlers kama nyinyi, mama mboga and all that. He repeated the same in Kitengela. So what is happening is we are seeing the deputy president shaping his platform for 2022 and this early. I want to finish by saying this. The scripts in this country never change. They don't change. Where William Ruto is right now is the place Raila Odinga has been across a number of elections, which is, forget about the political elite, deal with the people, with voters, deal with the wananchi. So
they call it direct appeal.
Direct appeal. Yeah. And it's a very powerful tool, because once you develop it, it means you can always fall back to it. And William Ruto has tested this for a number of years. We all shouldn't forget how the retreats to Kapkatet. You know, whenever things are too hot here, he'll go to Kapkatet in Kericho. It's packed with supporters, and it's really an energizing experience. Didn't we see Raila do the same with Kibra? Every time there's a problem in the CBD, he'll go to Kibra. So this is a political tactic, and politicians use that very well. I want to talk briefly about Uhuru Kenyatta. And lately, he's been popping out of his presidential limousine a bit too frequently for a sitting president, almost in manner of a campaign mode. There are two reasons he would do that. One, I think he's feeling the pressure of the environment. This is an untidy arrangement where you have your deputy basically running a very, very active campaign and even denouncing the government that he's serving. Because William Ruto has in the past few days sounded like he's running against this government, the government led by Uhuru
and actively
Kenyatta.
Distancing himself from it.
Even
his tweets, actually, he's been saying, now somebody will not say, oh, William Ruto this and the other thing, because he's a spectator.
Right. Now he's been doing that, and I think the president is feeling the pressure, and so he'll have to pop out of the limousine and say, hey, guys, I'm here, listen to me as well. The second reason he'd be doing that, to me, is BBI. I think when the report comes out, Francis, then the president can no longer sit in the State House. He has to come out and say, this is what it contains, and I stand for it.
And sell it.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I was just going to add that the deputy president is in a rather interesting position. You know, like you said, he's straddling both worlds. He holds the position of deputy president and deputy party leader, while at the same time decampaigning the very government, you know, that he works in, works for, sits in, and heads. And I find that interesting. And just to add, you know, he's completely uninhibited now. He's, you know, out there, and he is actually the one who is trying to define the race and set the issues, you know, draw the line line. This is what it is. It's me versus you, and this is why. And in some instance, you see, he's now setting the agenda, and then everybody else has to respond to that. And then you have Raila saying, "Lo, lakini yule alisema ya kwamba kuna hivi na hivi, but this is not the case. This is me. This is who I am." And so he's now putting himself in that pole position and having, you know, everybody have to respond to him and setting the pace for the race. And that's an interesting thing. I mean, before
Because
he's been, even during your interview, he was, you know, quite...
because campaign, Yvonne, campaigns are interesting if you're running from the outside, not the inside. Because basically you're putting aside the burden. Nobody will talk to you about, hey, but you said 5 stadiums and you raised the number to 9 at some point. So you'd wish to walk from his own words, actually. Yeah. And it's comfortable when you're outside.
And it would be easy, I mean, for him to play that victim card. Because, you know, a lot of people are saying, I remember when the Standard had that headline of spectator, he kind of turned it around and said, hey, you know what?
I'm happy to be a spectator.
It's a good thing. Watch Amini and the Lake was a spectator. And I think that is something that he might use later on to say, you know what? I was part of it initially, but you guys also what happened. But I think it's interesting how this whole narrative, and I think I said this last week, that it will be an interesting test of how our politics moves from here on, because we know that at the end of the day, the trump card of our politics is usually the ethnic base. I mean, our politics is mobilized around ethnic enclaves. And so for anybody to come up with a whole different path, so to speak, where you're talking about, you know, hustler versus all these other things, it will be an interesting experiment if that can then make nonsense of the usual fault lines. That really remains to be seen, because he keeps contrasting this whole hustler thing against the system and whatever other big things exist there in government. So for him to pull through with that whole hustler thing, he has to demonstrate that people can actually ignore the sort of ethnic loyalties they have and say, you know what, I come from Western and I come from Coast and from Central and whatever, and we have the same problems. I don't think that we have had that happen in this country, where somebody successfully rallies people across different ethnic communities. In a sense, we haven't seen class politics really take center stage in this country. And it will be interesting to see if that actually comes up this time.
I look at it this way: the sustainability of the hustler narrative. Unlike, you know, the ethnic balkanization or the ethnic mobilization that we've seen all along, the challenge now is sustaining this hustler narrative up to the election period, because you're saying it is us versus them, us who have nothing versus them who have everything, us who have nothing versus them who have led all along. You see, now the challenge will be to give it an identity, because one, for example, it is not possible that the deputy president will have a running mate as an ordinary hustler, you know, like a boda boda guy or a mamamboga. The running mate will definitely be somebody who is not necessarily in the definition of a hustler. You get my point? So now they're
chosen largely based on where they come from.
Yes,
unfortunately.
so largely the narrative is there, and it sounds appealing when you sell it out there. People will, you want the ordinary masses to identify with you. And even in terms of the donations and the gifts that the deputy president is giving, you can see who is being given and why he's being given. And that explains why the ODM leader over the weekend, while he was in Mombasa, was bashing the, you know, that process of donating bikes and tanks and everything else. In fact, they're saying it's encouraging the poverty mentality, so to say. So the sustainability of this narrative is where the challenge is. And then secondly, the so-called dynasties. Is it possible for them to sit back and, let's say, be bashed without a response? They will obviously respond in one way or another. And see what the president was doing today. He went to visit an establishment of what you would call an ordinary person, a hustler, so to say, in the construction of desks. You saw the clips today, and it is more or less like a direct response to the concern that you're giving guys A, B, C, D. On the other end, the president will insist we are giving these people an opportunity to make some money. You get it? Giving versus an opportunity to make some money. That's how I look at it in context.
Jamila.
I think my point, Gashuri actually said it, but the deputy president anajivunia being sidelined, as you had said. Even the tweets when during the KEMSA scandal, once it blew up, he spoke quite a bit, and I think for him he was glad that, thank God I'm not in this government during this period, and billions of shillings that should have been used in the fight against COVID-19 is missing. But again, the BBI is coming up. We are not even started the BBI rallies yet, and already we're seeing so much activity. And Gashuri tells us from next week, maybe we're expecting that the report may be released. Then what next? Is the country going to come to a standstill as we do have the BBI rallies? Because if history, not such a long history, but if December and January is anything to go by, when we had rallies about BBI organized in different parts of the country, if we have that now going forward, it's going to be a very long few months until we pass the BBI. And it is being sold as the solution to all the problems that Kenyans are facing. That mkipitisha BBI, msuluhisho ya kila kitu ambayo mnapitia, itapatikana. And I question whether people do understand what is in this BBI report for them to actually pass it, having the knowledge that this is how it's going to change my life. You talk about ethnicity and whether people are ready maybe to vote. Not along those lines. I don't think we are, because we have this mentality that mtu wangu akipata ita trickle down itufikie sisi. Yes, the deputy president is inviting people from different communities, from all over the country to visit him in his current home, or when he visits them where they are. Maybe that's what he's trying to sell. But I don't think as Kenyans we are ready. He needs each and every vote that he can get to win from each and every part of this country, but I don't think we're ready to go that route.
It's all very good when people are still speaking in English and in Kiswahili, but when now people get back to mother tongue and you address a rally like that in mother tongue, usually something very different happens in this country's politics.
Yeah, which is why you can't, Hustler is not one community. There'll be about 44 groups of hustlers. And it gets clearer towards the election, because we are a country that puts tribe first when it comes to political mobilization. And you just needed to look at all these leaders. Who is around them? Who is around Uhuru Kenyatta? Who is around William Ruto? And who is around Raila Odinga? It's first their community, and then the layering up continues that way. And all of them, each of them, always very carefully positions their candidature as a benefit to the community they come from.
That's right.
So I don't see any difference. And even in 2022, this will play out. And there have been very, very ugly signs already that we've seen, including in the revenue sharing discussion, which really took a very regional kind of pattern. So we'll see this going forward. But Joe, trying to interpret the weekend, because the weekend just burst into these crazy activities.
I mean, you'd
rallies.
honestly think the election is in October,
yes,
right?
Yes. So we just have to say, look, it's 2 years, more than two, it's about 2 years
it's about 23 months now.
Yeah, to the election. But it will come with different fortunes for the different players. And in my view, in the following ways. A long campaign favors the approach that is being taken by William Ruto right now, because he's an outsider but a government person at the same time. So he's still got access to the Jubilee base that supported him. And then you have Raila Odinga, whose hand came through. I think he showed his hand this weekend. I don't know whether we have that bite, him saying Hajachoka. Do we have the bite? Yeah, let's listen to this.
No, I don't think we have that one.
Oh, okay. Basically, by saying he's not tired, Francis, he's saying, I am in the race. I am running for 2022. So what we saw last weekend is the top two candidates for 2022. But here is something that we need to take note of. There is a lot of discomfort coming from observers of media coverage that we are boxing the race
to just
the two,
right?
And maybe Uhuru Kenyatta as a factor as well. I think it's right, but look, news coverage revolves around what has happened already. So it's not a spiritual thing. We cover what is out there. So if there are rallies, in Kitengela it's Ruto, it's in Mombasa it's Uhuru, it's Raila Odinga, then that's what the cameras will capture. I think for the critics of the media who say that this is making it a very narrow race, it's about who else has emerged, although we ran the risk of getting a call right away from Alfred Mutua, who launched his campaign the other day.
Yes.
He is in the race.
Yeah, and don't forget
I don't know who else, but yes,
Kivuta,
the more the players come out here, the more also the headlines will be changing.
I don't know, Elinas, you're not talking about Mwangi wa Iria, the governor from Murang'a. He has also said he's vying, and I've seen banners and placards and everything else. But as you say, it's a little too early, and the race will get open as we move on. The field will be filled with more and more participants as we move on. But as it is now, the interesting challenge will be the sure candidate so far that we know is in the race, except now Alfred Mutua, who turned up the other week, is William Ruto. On the other hand, on the other side, who will be contesting against them? And I think as we inch closer and closer to 2022, more and more names will come up. But now, it is also important to note that today Musalia Mudavadi was also popping his head out of his vehicle while in Nyeri. He also did the same thing in Kakamega the other day. So as the days progress, we will continue to see more and more people turning up to participate in the race. But I dare say it's a little too early to make certain decisions. It's a little too early to call it. Maybe probably September next year is when you can, maybe with some level of certainty, make a clearer observation on what's happening. But for now, it's a little too early.